Brussels, of course, under siege and coordinated attacks. Reminiscent, of course, of our own September 11th attacks. ISIS threatening that there are, quote, dark days ahead if we retaliate. I'd like to bring in former director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and Ambassador James Woolsey. Ambassador, Belgium obviously hotbed for Islamic terrorism, particularly that one neighborhood, Molenbeek, however you pronounce it, where huge density. This is where, of course, the Paris terror suspect hid out for a long time. There are a couple of things here. First, your assessment of how this happened so quickly. Was it the arrest that might have actually hastened this attack? And even though Belgium was on high alert, it still was successful.
I imagine ISIS has been working on infrastructure, setting people up like Salah to do logistics and bring stuff that they need, store things, keep things ready, do some training. I imagine they've been doing that for months to years.
But because the word was, here's a guy who didn't blow himself up during the actual Paris attacks, didn't blow himself up even though he knew police was in pursuit of him. In other words, here's someone who actually wanted to live. In initial reports, he was singing like a bird. So did that actually force whoever's in charge of these, saying, hey, pull the trigger now, to go ahead and force these? And could that mean even more attacks are imminent?
It's a good question. It's hard to say. Some of these terrorists, once they're arrested and they start to talk, whether it's a long process as it was with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, bin Laden's chief of operations, or others that decide sooner to cooperate. Once they decide to cooperate, they sing like canaries, as the expression goes. And I'm not sure why. I don't know what psychologically is going on there, but we have a situation where we're learning a great deal. And what we're learning is that anybody who thought that this war against Islamist terrorism is going to stay overseas or is going to stay in the Middle East, or we can opt out of it if we want, it's not our problem, right. The Europeans ought to deal with it, et cetera, et cetera. They are wrong. We have to be engaged and we have to win.
On that note, however, what should Europe do? Because obviously we know that the migrant problem has been a huge issue with them. We know the inability for these groups, the Islamic groups, to assimilate. The refusal to assimilate has been a problem for more than a decade. We hear about these neighborhoods, whether in France or other parts of northern Europe. How are they handling this wrong, and do you think they'll get it right?
Well, they need to commit more resources to security. One of the complaints that people have about NATO is that we're doing almost all of the funding, but Europe is not poor. And one thing that we really need to do is to convince them to join those in the United States who want to keep NATO going, want to build it up, want to make it capable of dealing with situations such as the Islamists. And to convince Americans who are dragging their feet and saying, well, maybe we don't need to do anything, or maybe we can get out of NATO, convince them to get together. We did a pretty good job during the Cold War with our European allies on the Soviets, and this is a very different kind of threat, but it's one we need to stick together with our allies.
For America's part, should we declare war on ISIS? I mean, should we make it an official war? This way we could probably enlist some of the tools perhaps that we used in the Cold War and put pressure for greater unity from our European partners.
We haven't really declared war in a formal sense since December 8th, I guess, of 1941. We've passed various resolutions in the Congress giving authority.
Why wouldn't we declare war on ISIS?
Well, it's a good question. It might well be something we should think seriously about. People have moved to using congressional resolutions that grant authority to the president to use force. That was done, for example, right after 9/11. But it might get people's attention if we did that. And I must say, I think that it deserves it. We are in a third war. You may not want to call it a world war the way we did World War I and World War II eventually, but it is. We've got to convince the American people and our allies, and we all have to together realize that this is a big fight and it's going to last decades. And it is
a global fight. Whether you want to use the term World War III or not, it involves the entire planet.